Greetings and welcome to the Stoic Gamer podcast. My name's Michael Bolton. In this podcast, I talk to players at all different levels of the hobby about their experience going to competitive events, whether it's their first time or whether they're a seasoned old timer like myself. I discuss the events we're going to, I discuss the events we've been to, and I talk about everything from army building, rules queries, happenings on the table to hotel disasters and culinary and gastronomic accidents, all part of the hobby and all part of visiting different parts of the country and the world as part of our fantastic 40k hobby. If you like this kind of content and you want to hear more, please let me know. If it's on YouTube, please just leave something in the comments. I'll always get back to you if I can. And if you're listening on any other kind of platform such as Spotify, do leave me a message. Listeners, I am not very well. I've got a terrible man cold and it's affecting my ability to think, speak, breathe. And so, frankly, that could explain the catalogue of cock-ups that have happened just more recently. Like, only today, I recorded this podcast once and didn't check to see if I was recording. So I did 25 minutes talking at a machine. It said I was doing everything right. I pressed the button and guess what? No sound. So I'm starting again, which is a bit depressing. Although from your point of view, a little bit of practice might get it better. Who knows? Anyway, I'm talking quite quietly and softly because otherwise I'm going to burst out into coughs and splutters. And if I do, please forgive me. And I can't be bothered to edit it. It will just remind you all how sick and poorly I am. Over the weekend on Sunday, I went to the Warlords of Walsall RTT, 48 players. So actually quite a few players, to be honest. And it was split up into two 24-man competitions. So there were two podium places for first, two for second, two for third. So that was quite nice. And I thought I was going to do reasonably well. I had a good list, I thought. Excuse me. There'll be more of that. I do apologise. But I thought I was going to do well. But the day started with an augur of things to come. As I leapt out of bed feeling absolutely dog rough, bunged up nose, couldn't breathe, hadn't slept during the night, just a cold, I know. I'd like to put it down to something worse, but I've recently had pleurisy and I don't know whether it's worse or whatever, but nevertheless. So I leap out of bed, throw the curtains open, early doors, and it's icy as an icy thing. All the cars are covered in frost, and I have to move my wife's car to get my car off the drive. So I come downstairs, I scrape the windscreen, I put the heating on, I get in the car, reverse the car, touch the brakes as you would normally, and the car doesn't stop. I go skating off down the drive, swing the nose round, across the drive and into a hedge. So I'm over the lawn, face down on a downward facing slope with my nose in a hedge, thinking, oh, now what? So that wasn't a good start. It was even worse when I couldn't get the car out because it's on a muddy grass lawn. So I now wake up the entire family who are not very happy with me at 7:45 in the morning on a Sunday. We can't push it. We can't move it. So I'm a bit annoyed. Anyway, I'd promised Dan Bates from Glasshammer Gaming that I would give him a lift to the event. So he turns up, laughs his socks off at what I've done. And I happen to know his dad is a really nice chap who owns a Land Rover. And I said, could you pull it out? So we phoned his dad. And his dad says, yeah, I'll come over when you get back. So sometime around 8:00 in the evening, I'll come over. We'll strop it up, pull it out. It'll only take a couple of minutes. So that's the plan. I then jump into my car. Dan throws his army on the back seat. And when I say throw, it's not attached. It's in a tray on the back seat. Well, he's happy with it, so I'm hoping that now I'm tensed up because I'm having to drive really carefully. So we eventually get to the tournament more or less on time. I'm feeling even worse. I've taken more drugs than is probably legal, but I still feel awful. And we arrive, and I get to play Liam. Liam, wonderful fella with a magnificent beard. I must say, I was jealous. I know I've shaved mine off, but it was never to the extent that this was. This was beautifully groomed, super duper colour. Oh, it was awesome. I had a bit of a man crush on Liam, to be absolutely honest with you. But we're moving forward. He had demons. He had, what did he have in his list? Shalaxi and Be'lakor for the cheeky arriving, charging 6 inches, etc., etc. And other than that, some fiends, some flesh hounds, so 3 beasts of Nurgle, which he used to deep strike and achieve objectives, some mission objectives, and 3 units of horrors that split up into other horrors. It was Dawn of War deployment. He went for fixed objectives, and he went for behind enemy lines and deploy teleport homers. This won him the game at the end of the day because he was able to consistently score. Because I couldn't screen him out of landing in my deployment zone, and the reason I couldn't wasn't that I didn't have enough models, but that he placed Shalaxi and Be'lakor in such a position where, as if I did screen him out, he would charge and kill everything I put there. I wasn't sure I could kill both of those monsters if they arrived at the same time. So that was a mistake, and I put it down to me being poorly. I think I should have screened him out using my flayed ones and my death marks. He would never have got in. He would have had to throw Shalaxi and Be'lakor into my lines, where I could have then shot him and countercharged with the Nightbringer and the Silent King, etc., etc. So I think I made a mistake on that one, and that was by just simply not seeing what the mission was, and not playing it. It was an error. Having said that, the final score was only 8 points difference, and he won. Liam beat me 92 to 80, 12 points. There wasn't a big difference in the point scores, but that consistent extra 3 or 4 every turn from getting deep striking a beast of Nurgle into my deployment zone, deploying teleport homers, getting behind enemy lines, just consistently built up the points, and I couldn't catch up. The lesson from that one is that don't be so scared. What happened ultimately towards the end of the game, he did move. I pushed forward with my wraiths into his deployment zone. He moved Shalaxi over with a 6-inch charge because it was in his arena of death, or his area of putrefaction, or whatever it was. He charged in. He killed most of the wraiths. But in my turn, I deep struck in my Locust Heavy Destroyers and Locust Destroyers. And the Locust Heavy Destroyers hit him 3 times, wounded her 3 times. He failed to 4-up save 3 times, so I did 18 wounds on him with those 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers. Then finished her off with the multitude of lethal hits from the normal destroyers. So I probably could have risked having Shalaxi and Be'lakor hit me in the lines, because the following turn he did exactly the same with Be'lakor, moved him out where he'd been standing on the objective to challenge the central objective, where I only had a Hexmark destroyer standing on it, and then I was able to destroy Be'lakor with shooting similarly to Shalaxi. So perhaps that's another example of me not being aware of the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Where I did miss out, and I didn't realise how good horrors was one of my other tactics was to come on from strategic reserves with my bikes, which are OC2. I've got 2 units of 3. The idea was to come on, shoot at something, and then move another 6 inches, which would put me on to one of the side objectives. I was easily able to kill half of his horrors. So I killed half his horrors, thinking he only had 5 on there. That's 5 OC. I'd then move my bikes on after they'd shot, and I would flip that objective. Against any other army, I think that would have been fine. Except the horrors split into more horrors. So instead of being 5 OC, he ended up with more OC than me, because all of these horrors split into other ones, which were all 1 OC. So that was a disappointment, but a learning experience. I knew that would happen, but for some reason my mind hadn't computed what it actually meant. So not brilliant, but 92-80, I lose. I move on to the next game, and I'm fighting a really nice guy called James and his Grey Knights. This time I lose again, 56-69. So there was 12-point loss the first one, 13-point loss the second. He's got Grey Knights, and basically we're both going to be jumping around all over the table doing things. And to be honest, it was a really close game. It was a really close game until the last turn. Now, this was the mission where the central objectives were removed on the 4th turn, so that the 2 remaining ones are worth 8 each. And then on the 5th turn, there's only 1 objective remaining, and that's worth, I think, 13, 15 or 13, let's say. We're equal. It's a low-scoring game. We are stopping each other scoring primaries. We're screening each other out because we both have jumpier armies. He's been very lucky with his Vortex of Doom. He killed 8 of my flayed ones with the Vortex of Doom before he'd shot anything from a unit of a strike unit or whatever they're called. But he did have a 10-man Terminator block and 2 Death Knights. The Death Knights I managed to kill. The Silent King killed 1, and the other one was killed by Locust Heavy Destroyers and supported again by the Locust Destroyers. They're down. His 10-man Terminator block untouched. He's teleported it around. He's scored a couple of small points behind enemy lines, things like that. But I haven't bothered to shoot at it because I know I can't really hurt it. So it gets to the last turn. Has just a couple of guys sitting on. And again, this is the second time I've gone first, which is a real horror in this scenario, and the first one. Excuse me. So he's got 2 guys sitting on an objective. He's got 5 guys sitting on objectives. I drop in with 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers and the Silent King, 9 inches away. Shoot at them. Kill 3. 2 left on the objective. I charge. Fail my charge. Re-roll. Fail my charge. What that means is that in the last turn, his Centurion, what am I talking about? His Terminator. Sorry, I'm really not very well. I can't think straight at the moment. His Terminators then drop in on the final objective and score 13 points. He wins by 13 points. So learnings from that, try not to go first in that scenario. Or the previous one against Liam was the one where at the end of the game, you score an extra 5 points for each objective you're holding. Going second is a massive advantage in both of those games, and I went first. So I went first. Okay, lost that one as well. Great game, thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm really tired now. Going into the 3rd game, no food. If I'm going to give anybody any advice, if they're going to go to one of the Warlords Walsall tournament, is take a sandwich. There's lots of crisps and sweets and water and fizzy drinks, but take a sandwich or a sausage roll or something to eat for lunch. Otherwise, you'll get a little bit tired and emotional like I did. So the last game, I'm fighting Perry. Perry turns up with Votaan. I fought these when I was down in Devon with fighting for the Cold Steel Mercs at Kirkton. They're horrible. 2 10-man mini Terminator units that have got more guns than they can actually physically carry, grenades, plasmas and everything. And the judgment tokens, meaning that they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound on everything, is extremely powerful and very scary. So we start to fight those. The objective is kill more and hold more. That's the mission, and we've got sticky objectives on this one. He's got 4 of the little tanks with the casino cannons on the top, two units of 10 of these Terminators, which are in deep strike, and then a bunch of just troop types holding objectives, and 3 units of 3 of the hovery bike things. So what happens there? Well, it's another really, really close game. Really close. It's a case of scoring as many points as you can every turn, because if you start to lose units, it's a problem, because they get the points for killing more, and then you're also down on assets when you want to do things. So it's not easy. I drew behind enemy lines on the first turn, and he left a gap for the Nightbringer to drop in. So I dropped the Nightbringer into his quarter of the table, thinking I might survive. I know he's got a lot of shooting, but I might survive. I didn't. He killed the Nightbringer, but it took virtually all his army. So that gave me a chance to move Silent King, Locust Heavy Destroyers into a position where I could also shoot at 2 of his tanks, his little tanks, which would be pushed forward near to the central objective. I shoot. Now don't forget, I'm doing flat 6 damage with 5 weapons here, and I'm hitting on 3s with the Locust Heavy Destroyers, re-rolling 1s because of the Silent King. The Silent King's hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. I hit 5 times. He rolls 4 6s for his saves. It's -4, -3 for cover. He's got a 3-up save, 6-up save. He sells all, so all I do is 6 damage onto 1 tank, and another 3 from one of the Silent King's other weapons. So that's a bit disappointing, because I was thinking that should be 2 of his little tanks destroyed. His little guys inside, the berserkers standing in the middle of the field, ready to get killed. But these things happen, so we moved on. And it was nip and tuck all the way through, until the end, when I managed to squeak out a victory by only 11 points, simply by playing the objectives, playing the mission, and just getting those extra kills. So I was occasionally killing just 1 more than he was in each turn, and that's because some of my stuff is just harder to kill. You know, the Wraiths, they don't do a lot of damage. They charged into a unit of his Hearthguard Terminator things and did nothing but tied him up. He wasn't doing anything after that with those. The Locust Destroyers normally would be wiping out things like that, but he gets cover. He plays Armor of Contempt analog on them, so all of a sudden my -2 weapons are -0, and he gets a 2-up save against all my stuff. So I wasn't able to do the damage on some things. He wasn't able to do the damage, so the scoring wasn't great. But I end up winning this one by 87 to 78. I'm not editing out the sniffs, and I'm not editing out the coughs, because you need to know just how near to death I am and how conscientious I must be to be getting up and doing this podcast for you. So 87-78. What are my learnings from those 3 games? Well, the first 2 particularly, you do not want to go first. You want to be able to get those extra points at the end by flipping objectives on the first mission. On the second mission, when the objectives are reduced to simply 1, going last gives you an opportunity to try and bully something off that lost objective. So that's first thing. Second thing is Votaan shooting is just hideous if you've got judgment tokens on you. Hideous stuff. Grey Knights are surprising, because last time I fought them, I didn't think they had a army-wide 2-up save, and that makes a huge difference. It makes all of their units that much more resilient. They still don't shoot brilliantly. They're okay in combat. But I was surprised he didn't take 3 sorcerers, because 3 Vortex of Dooms would be great. Now, strategically, looking at the bigger picture, I lost one by 12, I lost another one by 13, and I won one by 11. They're all really close games. Are the things I would do to my list? Yes. Not much, But I might lose the Praetorians, for instance, and replace them with something else if I can find something else to replace them with. The key learning here for me is they're close games. I just need to get better. I am close to winning all of those. I'm also close to losing all three of them. So it's a case of just getting better. There's nothing wrong with the army. I think this can go to a rogue trader and win all of them. I think it can go to a GT and win 4 and lose 1, go 4-1. But it all depends on me getting better. Now, that's a problem. I don't have Steam on my computer. In fact, I can't even put it on a Chromebook. So TTS is out of the question. So it just means playing people. And as we all know, finding the time in a busy working week is not easy. So it's about getting good. So I need to find a way of getting good. I was thinking earlier on, I know a lot of athletes, when they want to win, they don't actually do what they do, they visualize it. So perhaps I could visualize winning and see what happens. So for the next time, I'm going to be visualizing, levitating, meditating, procrastinating, all of those things. So that's the plan. Just get good is the answer. That is all. I am now going to go and lie down in a darkened room. What I can say is I got home, phoned Dan's dad. Dan's dad arrived in his 4x4, pulled the car out, it took 5 minutes, just minor damage for those of you that were wondering what happened at the end of this. Dan went 2-1. He lost to a mirror match against another Yinari Eldari at the end of the last game on the last turn. Really close to winning he was, but lost the last game. And that's it. I will leave a connection. I'm going to try if I can work out how to use my new system. I'm now using a platform called Riverside because Anchor and Spotify are stopping their free podcasting service in terms of studio. So they've now palmed it over to Riverside. So I'm using that and see how I get on. That is one reason why I had to record it twice, because I forgot to press the right buttons. Nevertheless, I'm going to go now. Thank you for listening, for those of you that have been, and I'll see you on the ice.